God dwells in you. Let us pray. Most holy and loving God, giver of all good gifts, thank you for this glorious day. Thank you for feet on the ground and breath in our lungs. Thank you for the incredible gift you give us when you give us to each other in your church. Be present with us in this hour. Help us to speak clearly and listen deeply. Help us to hear your still small voice in our hearts, in the spaces between the words, and on the lips of one another. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Welcome. Let me see if I can adjust this well. My name is Mike Kinman. I'm the rector here at All Saints Church. If you are new at All Saints or visiting with us this morning and would like to keep up to date on all the different things going on in this community and future events, there are green contact sheets by the door. Please take a moment and give us your contact information. Also on the lawn, there are welcome tables that have great sort of red welcome bags full of all sorts of information, including a card to fill out and return, or you can fill it out on the spot. It's really wonderful that you are here. Hello to everyone. Everyone turn and wave at the camera. Hello, everyone who is streaming worldwide, and I have been assured by my son, not on other planets. It doesn't work that way. That it is wonderful to have you here and part of our wider All Saints community. This is a community that is fueled by many things. It is fueled by the vision and energy of the people. It is fueled by the Holy Spirit, and it is fueled by your gifts. And so if you have pledged to All Saints Church, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have not pledged, it is not too late to pledge. And there are pledge cards, and we have new e-giving cards. There's lots of way to give. And if you're sitting there watching us online and you love what All Saints is doing and you want to get some skin in the game, just hit the donate button and make a gift. And thank you very much for considering that. At all times, we put our faith into action here at All Saints Church. And every week we focus it on one or two things that just help us act as one. And this week we're writing our state senators in support of SB 394. It's a bill supported by the All Saints Foster Care Project and Human Rights Watch. It would bring California into compliance with the recent Montgomery U.S. Supreme Court ruling that held that mandatory sentences of life without the possibility of parole are unconstitutional for individuals who are minors at the time of their criminal conviction. We sentence children to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And so the bill would streamline the process of complying with Montgomery by there's 290 individuals who were juveniles when sentenced to life without parole. It would make them eligible to an initial parole hearing after 25 years of incarceration. It's not enough. We got to do more than that, but this is a start. And it would also eliminate the need for expensive and time-consuming resentencing hearings. Again, this is the definition of the least that we can do, but it's something that we can do and build on. So please go over to the action table by the door on your way out and sign a letter to your state senator. I'm really glad that you all came today. I'm always glad that you come. Want to talk about what we're going to do for the next 45 minutes or so this morning. And this is something I started when I was at Christ Church Cathedral in St. Louis, and we've done it one or two times here, and I call them on-the-table forums. And the idea behind it really comes from the Eucharist. And what we do on the Eucharist is we give ourselves. We put not just the bread and the wine and the gifts of money, we put ourselves on that table. It's what we do as Christian people. We lay our lives on the table with Christ, and then what God does with that is amazing. God takes all that huge mess and mix of life and breaks it open and creates something new and gives it back to us, and then we go out into the world until we gather again. And so what happens at an on-the-table forum is it is a chance just for us to gather as a community and to lay on the table anything that's on our hearts about the life of this community. So generally it's not, what I will say, and I'm going to say a little more about this in a second, if you have a question for me that you'd like me to answer, I'm happy to do that. But unless you have a specific question for me, this really is a time for us to speak and to listen. And I'm going to start off by just sharing a few thoughts with you all, some things I'd like to lay on the table, because I've now been here as your rector for a little more than 6 months, and it has been phenomenal. I don't even think there's words to describe how wonderful it has been for me to be here as your rector. And so, and at the same time, there have been some real challenges for me. And part of this, you got to understand, I came from a church in Christ Church Cathedral in St. Louis where we had about 200 to 225 people on a really good Sunday morning. And I come to All Saints Church and we get 1,200 to 1,300. And the scale difference of All Saints to any place I've been before is tremendous, and it's phenomenal, and it's energizing and exciting, and it's been a big adjustment for me. And I'm learning some things, and I want to share this with you because I'm hoping we can learn things together, and I'm hoping we can help each other out. And one of the things that I'm learning is I spent my first 20 years in ordained ministry. Working in even a large congregation campus ministry, running a nonprofit at Christ Church Cathedral. And one of the things I always said is I have never turned down a meeting with anybody. I will meet with anyone who wants to meet with me. And then I came to All Saints. Whoa! And lots of people want to meet with me. And I still want to meet with everybody. And what I'm learning is it's not possible. Because what God did not do when God put us together is put more hours in the day. And it doesn't work that way. And this has been really hard for me because I really, really do want to meet with people, especially if I say something in a sermon that you're just like, oh, I don't know about that. Those are the conversations I love. And what I'm learning is I'm having this list of meetings that's getting longer and longer and longer. So I've got a great staff and wonderful wardens who are sorting through that. So first of all, if you're on that list, please have patience, and know that I got to figure this out. It's a glorious thing. You tend to hang on to your rectors for a long time here at All Saints Church, and so I'm hoping that we're going to have a lot of time together, and this will all sort itself out, and we'll have over time plenty of time together. But that's a challenge for me right now, and so I do beg your patience. Some of this stuff comes up. I have a 6-month review from the vestry, and some of these things came up. With that, and it was a wonderful conversation that I had with both the former wardens and the current wardens, and sort of related to that is just I'm still trying to get a handle on the volume of email that is to do with this job, and I know that many of you write me and you haven't gotten the responses, and I'm learning how to get in front of that, and these are skills that I'm building and I'm getting some help doing, and so again I just started, I ask your patience with me. And I ask your patience with Marin, my wonderful, wonderful executive assistant, Marin's getting used to having a new boss after quite a few years, and that's an adjustment. And so have patience with her. Please have patience with the staff. We have a wonderful staff here, and you get used to working for one person and working with one person, and this is a big change for the staff. And so, please, this is an opportunity for us to be gracious with each other. And then finally, and this is what this piece is about, is I'm still trying to get the handle of communications in this place. And again, it's a wonderful community. We have a great communications staff with Keith and with Susan Russell and others. And I realize that there are things that we need to put structures in place for communicating better about. Things like the search processes that we have and other things like that. We also need together, we put a lot of things out there on a lot of different platforms, and communications is a two-way street. It's not just about us putting stuff out there, it's about you being out there and reading and listening. And so, what I hope we can do together to continue to improve our communications is we're going to be looking for lots more ways to put more information out there. But please take the time to read the bulletin announcements. Especially as we're doing this trying on of shifting them. Look at the website, read that. This week at All Saints Email, it's full of great stuff. Read it. Read Saints Alive. We got a podcast now. Listen to that. There's lots of information, and I know you have lots of information coming at you all the time. But please take the time to read the information that's coming at you from All Saints. And I just want to say I am loving being here, and we're gonna, there's going to be some bumps in the road, and we're going to love each other through them. And so that's what I have to offer and lay on the table for you this morning. But really what I want to do is I want to hear from you, but I want us to hear from each other. And if you have a direct question for me, I'm happy to try to address it. I may not be able to answer it. But mostly I want us to listen to each other and hear. And it really is anything that is about our life together as a community. And so I'm gonna open it up, and Christina's got some folks, and I see Dana's there with a microphone, and Jim is there, and I'm not going to be the one who points out, so you all just sort of choose, and Rick, so just go ahead and find somebody, and we'll go. Yeah. Can you?
Yeah, I'll start while she's trying to work her microphone.
And say your name.
And Mike, I just want to
say your name.
This is John.
Hey, John.
And John is really appreciating what you said just a moment ago about how many people actually attend All Saints, and how much I appreciate your encouragement to take the step forward to meet somebody that we've never met before. That didn't happen today. But I would really like you to continue to do that, because we need the encouragement, and I think it's a really valuable asset, especially for new people who are coming.
Thank you.
I think mine is working now. Mike, we love having you here too.
Your name?
I'm Nancy Mackey.
Thank you.
Mike, you bring us to holy ground.
Thank you.
We are changed because of your sermons. I'd like to lay something on the table, possibility, because this morning I was so pleased to hear after your sermon, amidst the applause, some amens. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if we could try, say, having 1 month in the bulletin or announcing, asking people who really feel an urge to applaud to change that to an amen, that it would still be a chance for us to respond and say yes, amen, without the applause. I wonder if I'm just going to lay that on the table, the possibility of asking people just to try it for a limited time.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy.
David Randall.
Hey, David.
And I just wanted to commend you on your willingness to experiment and try things and see how they work. I know because you've added content to the service and you're looking at now ways to put some of the announcements at the beginning, that sounds like a fascinating experiment and an idea that has real potential. And you've done that in a lot of other areas, and I think that adds a level of excitement and an interaction between us that is fascinating to see, and I think very welcome. So wanted to say how pleasing that is.
Thank you.
I will add that maybe the announcements at before the Eucharist that explains the details of it, maybe even that could be shortened so that we rotate through all the details from 1 week to the next. But I think everything is just a very open and positive interaction, so I'm very pleased with it.
Thank you. Hey, Bob.
Bob Carlson. I'd like to put on the table Pasadena Public Schools. Mm-hmm. I think it would be, I would like to see us as a church to become better informed about the Pasadena Public Schools, to see what we can do to help promote them. They've had a very stormy history, a lot of ups and downs. They educate the bulk of our students in this city, although there's a very, very large number, I don't know, maybe a third who go to private schools. but there's something close to 10,000 people, students rather, in the Pasadena Public Schools. This parish has had a pretty good history over time in looking at public schools and seeing how we can help. There are so many ways that we could help. We could have a very active ministry with a table on the lawn to help people. The stormy history is quite stormy. I've sent you a very full email on this subject, and
Thank you.
prompted by last week's.
Right.
Yes, and that's very appropriate, as I pointed out in my email. I am not, and my wife and I both are very strong supporters of strong independent schools as well as public schools. It shouldn't be either or.
Right.
And it's a personal choice of a family. And the private school, independent school choice is a perfectly valid school, but that is no reason to absent oneself.
So you'd like
from
to see
the
us
public
more.
school.
You'd like to see us more involved in that.
I would like to see us much
Thank
more
you.
involved.
Thank
yes.
you, Bob.
Hello? Hello? Go ahead. My name is Elliot Ryder.
Oh, there- hey,
And
Elliot.
Mike, I just want you to know that I'm here because of our mutual friend, Marilyn Adams.
Thank you. Marilyn, for those of you who don't know, Marilyn passed away of pancreatic cancer recently. She was a seminary professor and a dear mentor of mine and a dear friend of Elliot's and a friend of All Saints Church, just one of the great minds and hearts of the church. So thank you, Elliot.
So, Mike, my name is Julie. I'm Chinese American, first generation, born in the U.S. I was also baptized by Ed Bacon at this church.
Excellent.
So, and my comment actually, or thought, is really in response to the gentleman over there who made a comment about PUSD in public schools. I've worked in special education for the last 2.5 years, and special education in California, which is my only, and many of you probably heard the story about Puerto Rico closing 187 public schools, with no accommodations, considerations being made for special education, probably mostly due to economic constraints. So the public special education classes that now exist in LAUSD used to exist actually in your local public school districts, but because of funding constraints, they no longer can exist. I really am, I have so much to learn on this topic, and I continue my journey in this profession and try to navigate these constantly changing waters. It's very challenging, but that's just one element of the public education debate that is really not getting much analysis, is the effect on that demographic. And if any of you are watching the UTLA current school board race, you'll see the division as well through that. So,
Okay.
just wanna show
So
that.
thank you very much for that. This is where this can go off in really interesting areas. But really what I would love to do is to keep what we're laying on the table, things about our common life together. Because we can all sort of have topics that are really, really important and really interesting. Because like I'm listening, it's like, oh, I want to find out more about that. And all of a sudden, this thing can take off in 9 million directions. So yeah, I'm really interested in hearing from you about our life and community and what we should be doing and what what your thoughts are. Where do you feel the Holy Spirit moving? What do you disagree with?
Bill Berry.
Hey, Bill.
What I'd like to put on the table is if there could be some communication about, like, when you're not here on a Sunday, yeah, of course, Mike's back in St. Louis with his family, or the families will be coming at some point in time. Ed's been gone long enough that it would be nice to see a bit of information about what Ed's doing. Wilma was a friend of many of us. Zelda's going to be retiring, but when are we going to celebrate her? Just some way to, I know among the staff and others, information flows, but for us that are more on the edge, it would be nice to just know what's going on. A little statement, a little personal information about various things.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. What else? Go over here.
Hi, I'm Amanda, and my husband's getting coffee. And we're usually not here because we're at the parent culture group. And I just wanted to point out, because we've been here about 1.5 years, And we come from that small church where we did everything. We were like the volunteers for every single thing. And it was a relief to come here because suddenly all we had to worry about was our kid. And we're like, wow, look at all these little other groups we can go to. And frankly, as a sort of new person, I guess, having the communication with the person in that littler group is more important because we can't. I've never met you. I've never emailed you. I don't have barely time to get here. So, but I really appreciate the parent culture group because those people have a Facebook page and those people follow up. And I see like I have to only worry about 20 people's names and not like everybody in this room who most of you have probably never met. So I'm just pointing that out, that really works for the new people when we come in.
Yeah.
And you guys have a lot of opportunities, which is really cool.
Right.
So,
Would you mind if I said something to expand on what you're
Sure.
saying? Yeah, and because I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And part of being a large system, I think sociologists have said there's a group, the group size of about 150 is the size at which you can know everybody's name and know everybody. And once it gets larger than 150, you can't do that. And so when you get in a large community like All Saints, you got to break it down smaller. And so involvement in smaller ministries is really important. So here's the other thing about that. If you're new coming into a place, that can be really intimidating, especially if you have a smaller group that already really knows each other. I don't know if you ever had the experience of when you were in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade of being the new kid in class and everyone else knew each other. It's scary. And there's a piece, I mean, some people are wired for that stuff and they dive in and it's no problem. But for most of us, that's a little bit of trepidation. And so what I would say is if you're in one of those smaller ministry groups, which is great, and we got 1 million of them here, and this gets back to the invitation of sort of meeting someone new, please look for meeting new people and invite people in. People are much more likely to go somewhere if they know even one person. The statistics on this are just enormous. And so what I would say is, first of all, find that way in. And if you found that way in, great. Look to bring other people in too. Because, if we just sort of assume, well, the group's here and people will find us, that doesn't work. It works for a small percentage of people, enough to keep us thinking that it works. But it doesn't work for most people. And so, find those small way-ins. I'm so glad that you have. And parent culture is phenomenal. And just be looking for more ways. Personal invitation is the most powerful way to build community. So thank you. What else? Got one down here and one up there.
Margie Power. I don't know if I've missed an announcement with all the various communication channels, but where are we on the James Walker position?
Okay.
I wouldn't say replacing James Walker because that doesn't happen.
Right. No. And I'm really clear. Like we're not replacing James or Zelda or Kathy, who's our comptroller. We have wonderful people like that. You can't replace them. And so I'm going to. It's a question for me. I'm going to answer that. And this is something, again, I need to be better about communication with this. So we have, for the director of music position, we have 2 search groups that are operating right now. The first is looking for an interim director of music. And that is a group of, I'm going to look because on the fly, I'm looking at Melissa. It is Terry Knowles and Gloria Pitzer and Elizabeth Tatum and you and me. Is that it? That's it. And we have some great candidates for an interim who would begin in August and run through the end of the program year. And we're, over the next week or so, going to be doing some interviewing, and our hope is by June, we will have an interim announced. There is also a search team that has been announced for a full-time director of music, and that is being co-chaired by Terry Knowles and Elizabeth Tatum. And that group is going to start to meet in June. And one of the first things they're going to look at is the job description. And this is a chance. I mean, James has done amazing work here over his 30-plus years. And one of the many gifts of that is it gives us an incredible foundation on which to build. And we can talk about that, and we can sort of look at, and we're also incredibly gifted by Wei Chung, who is, as you have heard, a brilliant organist. And so we already have that skill set. And so we obviously need someone who's a wonderful choral conductor, world-class choral conductor. But, because, we need someone who has definitely some organ and keyboard skills. But we can say, okay, are there other areas, do we want to sort of, move different ways? The congregation is developing. How do we want to continue on the trajectory on which James has led us? And so we're going to spend some time with that, and then we're going to do a national search for that. And part of what we're going to do at that first meeting is set up a communications plan for the congregation so that people will know, okay, every step of the way, here's where we are. My understanding, I wasn't here at the time, but during the rector search, that the rector search committee, it felt like, did a really good job of communicating with the congregation, even when there really hadn't been any progress, of saying, well, I know, here we're doing this, and so people knew. And so we know how to do this, and we're gonna try to do that. Now I'm gonna answer a second part of that question, which you didn't ask, which is the same question about the clergy positions. And so we have two positions for clergy. One is the position that is going to be left when Zelda Kennedy retires, and it is a senior associate for pastoral care, healing, and health. And then there is another salary slot for a clergy position that is still left over from when John Depphouse was here. And what we are doing right now is I have called together with the help of the wardens a search committee for both of those positions. This is one committee that's going to do that. Kathy Kegg has wonderfully agreed to chair that. And so I'm working with her. We're going to announce who that committee is. I'm still waiting to hear on one person who hasn't responded yet. So, and when that is, we'll announce what that is. And we're going to be looking at candidates for those positions. And how that search is going to run is we're going to have the committee that is really going to look at the job descriptions and work with me on that. But I'm going to take a much more directive role in those searches than I am for the director of music search. I'm the rector, so I make all the final hires. But in the case of the clergy positions, I'm going out and I'm headhunting. And I'm bringing candidates to that committee, and then that committee will interview and vet them. And people say, well, what is your timetable on these? And certainly we would love to have people here as quickly as possible. What I will say is it is far more important to me to get the right people here than to get them here quickly. And again, as soon as that search committee meets, one of the tasks is going to be having a communications plan so that the congregation gets regular updates on that. The other thing I will say is that I've asked Isaac Ruelas, who is our multiculturalism coordinator and one of our youth ministers, to be a staff resource to both of those committees, so that in addition to the wonderful people on those committees, that we will have someone who is trained particularly to look at these through a multicultural lens and also through a multi-generational lens. Isaac is brilliant, and we're really grateful for having him here, and we want to make as much use of him as we can. So I just wanted to say that about those two clergy search positions, and then more information will be coming from that. And Jim's got someone there. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jean Lesher.
Hey, Jean.
My husband and I, Bill, we've been coming here for 6 years, steadily, dedicatedly, primarily because we're coming from 25 miles, Claremont. So because we found this community to be the most spiritual, nourishing we've ever belonged to. And that's heavily, too, because of the social action activities that we can do every week, and we do that faithfully. At any rate, I just want to say, let you know how important that is for us commuters who come from a distance. I don't know how much longer we can, but we are thrilled with what we find. I would like to say I prefer the greetings in the middle of the service rather than ahead of time, and partially because I think it shows a personal kind of relationship to the community with the activities you're describing. that I think is helpful for new people in particular, but also for us 6-year attenders.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And by the reading, I mean, I'm assuming you mean the announcements. The announcements and the greetings is what you're talking about? Okay. I'm going to take a little just to say a word about that and about the process is lots of people have initial opinions about this, which is what I would expect, and it's great because it means we care. And those initial opinions are incredibly valuable, and if people are, we're taking them down. And the reason we have a period of trying something on is, as important as those initial opinions are, I would really say also, okay, that's good. We'll record that initial opinion, and over the next 6 weeks, see what it's like. And then also see how you feel and what you think at the end of June. So it's not an either or, it's a both and. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Hi, I'm Candy League. I've been on Building and Grounds Committee for over a dozen years.
Hey, there you are, thanks.
And I've been coming here a very long time. I want to bring something up that I know you're talking about in vestry, and this goes back to the building campaign.
Yes.
Which a lot of us who have been here went through several years,
Yes.
and I won't get into the details. Okay, so I know you're bringing it up again, but then we also have the Space Task Force 2 group, which, I sometimes wonder if I'm going crazy because I remember hearing the scope and the mission, and now the scope and mission has changed, but nobody has said the scope and mission are changing. They were going to do something, turn it around really quickly and show an impact. And the few meetings that I've attended and been to follow up, it's sort of a wishy-washy, well, we're getting more information and we're doing this. And I'm thinking like, this is the building campaign all over again. And is just one example of how I see it similar to the building campaign is there's some absolutely amazing play equipment that now appears to be chosen, which reminds me of, and it costs twice as much as something we could do that I think the children would like and enjoy just as well, but it's beautiful if you have an architectural eye or an artist, you go, wow, that's beautiful, but I don't feel it represents our values necessarily about where money could make more of an impact. Right. So that's just sort of throw that out. I have a lot of other thoughts and ideas that I mull over and share with my friends here, and they I don't want to say anymore. That's enough for one comment. Thank you.
Would you like me to respond to that briefly?
Sure.
Okay, I'm hearing some other yeses. Okay. This is a huge thing, and this is, again, part of, as soon as I landed here, I started hearing about the building, actually, but way before I got here. First of all, let me say, no decisions have been made. So if you heard about, we're going to buy this play equipment, I don't know where you heard that, but no decisions have been made. We bought some benches. That was in direct response to, we had a children, youth, and families listening session, and there were several things that CYF folks, or folks who were passionate about that, raised, and we thought, one of them was, can we have a place to sit down on the playground? And we thought, well, that's low-hanging fruit. Let's just do that. That's reasonable. And there were a couple other things that we're working on. So just really briefly, and it's a hard thing to talk about briefly. Frankly, anything's a hard thing for me to talk about briefly. But as I've been listening about the building campaigns, and there's multiple campaigns that have happened, and there are many layers of feelings about them, and then there's also a whole group of people who have arrived at All Saints since that, who really sort of have no idea what's going on. What we're discovering is that, and we spent some time at the vestry staff conference talking about that, is we have lots of different people who have many different experiences of those building campaigns. And there has been some damage to relationship. I am absolutely convinced that in all of these campaigns, it was people who love God, love Jesus, and love the church, doing the best they can. And actually, one of the things that has been wonderful in the conversations I have is people have been able to express disappointment and even woundedness without demonizing each other. But I also think there are some wounds about these building campaigns, and there are some trust issues. And I'm seeing folks nodding their heads as I'm saying this. There are some trust issues around this. And I'm a big believer that before we dive into another project, we got to deal with some of that stuff. And that's okay. These are natural things in any community, particularly when we have had some really wonderful big visions that come out of the best places in our hearts, and they weren't fulfilled in the way that we hoped. That's painful. And I think that we have, we have some listening to do to each other. And this is part of what we're talking about as a vestry is, we kind of tried out what a process of listening and reconciliation would look like at the vestry staff conference. And then part of what we're going to talk about is, is that something that we can offer? Are there feelings out there? And maybe that would just sort of be something I would just sort of ask. Let me just sort of put this out without sort of saying what they are. Do you all feel that there are unresolved issues and feelings involving this? Okay, I'm hearing some yeses out here. Okay, so we have some work to do. And so, what I will say about sort of any future plans, our space needs have not gone away. Particularly our desire and need to provide really phenomenal welcoming space for our children, youth, and families, and space that's really going to engage the entire community. That hasn't gone away. I'll quote the African proverb that Becca Stevens quotes all the time to me, which is, if you want to travel quickly, travel alone. If you want to travel far, travel together. We have a long way to go, and the first thing is figuring out how do we get there together. So my first priority is working on the relationships, and so we're going to be working on that. So thank you for raising that.
Hello. Hello there, Pastor Mike. My name is Mark Grabo, and I come here. I wanted to speak about the ministries.
Great.
I've been a member here for about 5 years. And I work as a facilitator or volunteer as a facilitator on Monday with the Brothers on the Journey.
Huh.
And it's a group of men that meet and we discuss spiritual growth, mental, physical health. We're not therapists. We have some therapists in the group, and we have a very strong format and mission that we worked on together. So this speaks to how people can come together and agree to disagree. We also have texts that we love, Thomas Merton, Richard Rohr, so there's commonalities in the direction we're taking spiritually. And I guess my question is, what do you see the future of the podcast? I'm very excited about the website here and the streaming. You started out talking about that. And I was wondering if there would be somebody that would organize kind of a format, a calendar for that, and it would be open to the ministries. What would that involve and entail? Cost, schedule, qualifications, and if you could perhaps clue me in.
Yeah, and I guess what I will say is, there she is. I know I saw Susan. You just heard what he said. Susan and Rick Bolton are the primary two people who've been working on the podcast, and that's still kind of in its fun design imagining stages. Yeah, in soft launch mode. And so I think just laying that on the table as an option, that's a great thing, and thank you for offering that. And if you haven't listened to the podcast yet, listen to it. It's really good. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Nichol. I've been involved here for over 30 years. Choir, obviously, and I love doing the newcomer coffee, so it's great to hear that Amanda is a newcomer. The comment I want to say is I'm thrilled to hear you're talking about emphasizing children's and youth ministries, because I think that in our strength as a congregation, we have been very outward-looking, which is very important, and it is sometimes perhaps has been associated with not paying as much attention to family members who are under 30. So I think that's great.
And you're welcome. And I want to make sure that we're clear. This isn't a zero-sum game. Because a lot of times we get afraid that if we focus on one thing and it doesn't happen to be something that is our thing, that it means that thing is going to be less than, and we're just going to keep doing this. We have an incredible wealth of resources, mostly human resources, here at All Saints Church. And so, yes, children, youth, and families are important. And yes, the racial justice ministry is important. And yes, the work, all this stuff is important. And God grants us incredible abundance to do this. And so, what I hope that we can continue to do is to celebrate the growth of every ministry and not fall victim to that temptation of, oh, well, if they're focusing on that, is that going to hurt my thing? Because it really doesn't need to happen that way. And so yeah, and this is about looking at where do we still have work to do, letting loose the gifts of the people of God. And there's plenty of that to go around. So thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Mike. Barbara Beckham.
Hey, Barbara.
Thank you so much for who you are already to us. It's been just phenomenal to have you.
Okay.
I would just like to put on the table that with Zelda's departure, it would be helpful for us to know who the point person will be until the interim, or not interim, but until you hire somebody, and just to keep us abreast of who we go to. And I don't know what your plans are for the summer. Historically, our rector has not been with us in the summer. So could you give us just a real brief update? And also, I'm personally interested in knowing if your son has chosen a college.
Okay, now we're getting real. First of all, thank you about those notes. I wrote that down. That's excellent. So my plans for this, and this year, first of all, I really want to thank you. You have been incredibly patient. I've been traveling a lot, going back and forth to St. Louis. Not as much as my family would like, probably, but and that's been incredibly important. And I appreciate the prayers. I appreciate the grace in which you have held not just me but my family. And just thank you so much for that. My son Schrader is graduating from high school on June 4th. It's also Pentecost Sunday, and it's the choir concert, and it's all that. So I won't be here. I'm going to be at his graduation. I won't be here for that. That's okay. I'll be here other years. Yeah, no, I'm not missing that. So I'm leaving June 1st. I'm flying back to St. Louis. He graduates June 4th. Packers come June 8th. The Movers come June 9th. And then June 10th, we start driving. And we try to beat the moving van back to Pasadena. Where we live in St. Louis is less than a mile from the old Route 66, and where the rectory is here is less than a mile from Route 66. So we're getting our kicks, and doing not the entire route, that would be treacherous, but most of what has become of sort of the spirit of the law of Route 66 is we're going to do that and see the Grand Canyon and some stuff. And so the idea will probably be all here in Pasadena by the 15th or 16th, which will be wonderful. And so thank you very much. And then I'm going to be here working through the end of June after that, and the first Sunday of July. And I'm taking pretty much all of July off as family vacation. And we're going to spend some time together, and a lot of that will be here. We also have we vacation with Robin's family every year on the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is wonderful. And I have I have great parents. I have the best in-laws in the world. And so we'll do that. And then August, this is where it's just sort of interesting. My contract gives me something called study leave, which I know Ed took in the summer. And I'm certainly taking some of that. But during that time, I will be in Pasadena. And I'm sort of I'm still working on what exactly that is going to look like. But I also recognize that this summer is different because we do have fewer people here. And so we're really going to kind of see where things are with August and early September. I will probably be around, I'll definitely be around some of that time, if not a lot of that time. What that being around will look like, we're still trying to figure out. For one thing, I think I'm going to need to be here to meet with search committees and things like that. So we're still trying to figure that out. We haven't made the announcement about Schrader because wanted to sort of let him do that, but it has actually been about 3 weeks. And so I think he's had a chance to tell everyone that he wants to tell. He is going to be at University of California, Santa Cruz. He's going to be a banana slug. And we are thrilled. It is a phenomenal place. And it's actually when I was born in Santa Clara. And my dad was working at Lick Observatory in Mount Hamilton on the time and was teaching at on the faculty of UC Santa Cruz. So he's sort of coming back in the family. So he'll be an astrophysics and astronomy major there. So thank you. Yeah, he's way smarter than me, if you hadn't noticed. So, yeah, we have, we're going to have one more, and then we're going to have to call it quits because it's 11. Yes.
My name is Beverly. I joined under George Regas, so I know lots about changing priests over the years in various roles. I want to know what, besides the translation in the liturgy, we're doing about attracting Asian Anglicans.
Excellent. And that's a question, this is really important. First of all, not just Anglicans. We're looking for everybody. But the truth is, fastest growing population in Pasadena, you've heard me say this before, is Asian. Much of that is Chinese. We've sort of started with it with a nod to how we're printing the Lord's Prayer in simple Mandarin. I'm having a meeting with Bishop Diane Bruce later this month where we're talking specifically about that. And then I'm going to bring in Isak, our multiculturalism coordinator, and we're going to really start talking about what does this look like here at All Saints Church. And so right now, not that much. In the future, more and more. And that's kind of where we are right now. I know we could go on for a long time. It is 11 o'clock. What I would actually ask you to do is, can you stand as you're able? And can you find, if we can't join everyone else's hands, can we at least join hands with somebody? And at the cathedral in St. Louis, we always used to do these in the nave of the cathedral, and then we would all gather at the foot of the cross, and we can't really do that here. But its truth is that what enables us to have these conversations and listen to each other is the grace of God. And so we always ended by just singing Amazing Grace, singing the first verse of that together. So I thought we would do that. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. Amen. Thank you all.